So hello everyone, welcome to the 7th GINTL Sino-Finnish Education Research Center's webinar series, Education and the Society. So this time we have a very important topic about education and sustainable development goals. So we are honored to have two experts from China and Finland, so Professor Huang Yu from Beijing Normal University and Professor Lili-Ann Wolff from Helsinki University. So before we start today's lectures, presentations, or dialogues, I first announce the housekeeping rules here for the webinar. So please remember, this webinar is being recorded, and the parts of the webinar that were allowed to be shared by our speakers will be available on the website of GINTL Network and the Sino-Finnish Education Research Centre. The presentation slides will also be available there. During the webinar, please keep yourself muted unless you are asked to speak or ask a question at the Q&A part. You can keep your video on if you wish. We recommend using the speaker view that can be selected in the top right corner of your Zoom screen, so you can clearly see who is speaking. To ask a question, please use the chat function to indicate your question or comment, and then the moderator will invite you to raise the question in the Q&A part. When you are invited to ask a question, please unmute yourself, turn on your camera, state your name, and which institution you are from. Okay, now I'm going to invite our speakers. So first, we invite Dr. Lili-Ann Wolff. She is the Director of Education and Associate Professor in Environmental Education. She works as a Senior Lecturer in Science Education at the Faculty of Education Sciences, Helsinki University. Her research interests includes sustainable education from transdisciplinary and critical views, combining education, philosophy, and philosophy of science. Dr. Wolff is also an active author with many articles and book chapters in international publications. In addition, she has a long experience of international collaboration and networking as a member of many strategic working groups. So Dr. Wolff, floor is yours. So welcome, Lili.
Thank you very much. I'll share my, and thank you for inviting me to this interesting webinar. I share my slides. Can you see the first slide now?
Yes.
Yes, good, thank you. Yes, my topic for today is sustainable leadership, but a few minutes ago, I changed it to sustainability leadership in higher education because that's the more precise topic that I'm going to talk about today. And I'll start with uttering a few words about the concept of sustainability and also what is meant with Anthropocene. Because that's the background for what I'm going to say later. And then I'll talk about the challenges of sustainability in higher education and sustainability leadership, what that might mean, and give a comparison of a little provocative ideas about competencies by Bildung. But to start with, sustainability and sustainable development have both been on the agenda for years now, and they have been stressed, especially in politics, but also in education and in the very many fields of society. and the Sustainable Development Goals that were printed, published in 2015 with UN, United Nations as the main agency behind these goals, have become very interesting in many situations where we try to develop the future and also education. But a question that we always have to raise in education and also elsewhere is if these SDGs and Agenda 2030 are radical enough, because there are a lot of voices stressing that they are not. And already in 1999, O'Sullivan accused the Brundtland Commission their Agenda 21, that was the first agenda on the sustainable development, was to have our cake and eat it too, because it might, as he and many others, for example, in the degrowth movement, people think that it's only a way to keep the things going as they have been before, and have richer and poorer countries the same division and that we have had before. But that's a long discussion. Another topic that has been central is the discussion about Anthropocene. And what does that mean? That means that we are in a new geological epoch that had started. It's many ideas are also about when it started, but most of those talking about the Anthropocene mean that it came after the Second World War, because humans have affected planet Earth physically, chemically, and biologically, and all the water cycle, weather and climate systems, biochemical cycles, the biosphere, the sediment system, etc. So, the most obvious sign of that we have reached the Anthropocene is the global warming, and of course also the loss of biodiversity. So what human started threatens the existence of all humankind. And Clive Hamilton, that has written much about the Anthropocene, says that the Earth has now crossed the point of no return. Its great cycles have changed. The chemical compositions of air and ocean have been altered in ways that cannot be undone. By the end of the century, it will very likely be hotter than it has been for 15 million years. So the sustainability issue, that's a political issue, but the Anthropocene, that's based on science, so the background is different. But I'm going to talk about sustainability also in the following. Constant Freeman talk about sustainability in higher education in Finland. A few universities and polytechnics have gathered and started to work on sustainability. So there are things going on in the university fields. On many universities in Finland are working with the sustainability issue, not at least my own university, where we have Helsus, that it's a transdisciplinary organization inside the university with people from 7 faculties and many professors and members. But the Constant Freeman say in a short article that higher education cannot be redesigned or renewed by developing only teaching and learning. Real change requires redesigning structures, processes, and ways of action. Strategic decision-making, management commitment, and practical actions are daily needed. A commitment of higher education institutions to promote sustainability through their own programs is a major step towards reforming higher education in a direction towards a sustainable future. This is nearly the way they say it. I have changed a little to make it easier, but this is, I think this is very good, well stressed, the problem that we face. But higher education do also have all kind of associations working with sustainability and especially the greenings of the higher education field. So this is something that is going on. Still, the process, in many opinions, is too slow because it's very complicated. The one problem is that the complexity of sustainability and of the challenges of Anthropocene, that it's not divided by disciplines, but it's interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, and even needs the transdisciplinary thinking. And its future orientation, the time scale is very long and it's value-based. So it has to do with human values. And it's often in conflict with current policy and practices. So it's request of a change. And it demands new, not only new managing, but also new teaching methods. And it can totally be in conflict with norms, routines, ways to think and act. So there's no distinct quick fix available. And the role of education is also very complex and a big challenge. And higher education relates to many other practices. And the leadership is very complex because it's a hierarchical organization. The universities are all hierarchical. They have leaders on many levels, and they have leaders that are working parallel, and they have leaders that are from the top, bottom to the top, on all many levels, and also related to other levels of the management of society. And what we need to discuss openly is what's the aim of higher education? What is the education for? And what are the roles of pedagogical theories and methods, and which are the adequate methods? Is it any idea that we have all kind of research and learning sessions that we have if we have a planet that's to take care of? We need a planet that has all possibilities needed, opportunities for people and other creatures on the earth to have a decent life. And competencies are often talked about in the sustainability education context. But I want to raise the North European from the beginning, coming from the German-speaking countries, and also much being induced in the Nordic countries, the Bildung concept. Bildung is about that, and it's more than education. It's about that persons and groups are learning and gain knowledge and a view of their societies, of the world, by of course by knowledge and information, but also by experience, by discussions, by dialogues, by reflections. So it's like an hermeneutic circle where you go from your own reflections to the bigger context, and it's also built on that the learner is recognized and summoned, encouraged to learn and go further and reflect on their own lives, but also the groups, the societies, and of course the what is often left out from the Bildung idea is nature, but we also need to think about that human is a part of nature and totally dependent on nature. Another view that is often raised in the sustainability education discussion is competencies, that humans need special competencies to be able to live up to the sustainable development goals and to have a decent, sustainable life. But competence thinking is much more pragmatic than a Bildung thinking. It's not so much about ethics and your own role as a Bildung perspective. It's totally different, but so I wanted to raise that issue. I'm just writing about this, so you can read more and we can discuss it afterward. But sustainable leadership in higher education is complex and challenging. And sustainability, if it at all is, see it from a Bildung perspective, so sustainability, higher education leadership cannot prioritize economic or political interest before education and before sustainability. So it has to recognize the need of the individual, the group, and the entire planet, because the future is unpredictable, but we have to build it together. So the students must be prepared to meet an unknown future, not to live in a future the teachers create. So it's not the task of the leaders, and here I also see the teachers as having a role as leaders, to steer the young people onto a certain path. They should instead open up to different alternatives and encourage critical thinking, questioning, and relevant activities. So to stop with a last slide, I think to have a reliable, sustainable university that is managed and led by the idea of sustainability, all the activities have to lean towards a sustainability philosophy and a future that we really have to change the route towards the future together. So what I put in the middle is the culture. We have to shape another kind of culture. So you see when you come in the building that this is a place where sustainability is in the forefront. It has to be visible in the visions and strategies, in the curricula. And it has been visible in management and basic processes, and also in the collaboration with stakeholders, also in internationalization and international collaboration. But in the middle, the culture, that's about the daily life on campus together with teachers, managers, all staff members, and all students. And it has to be visible in the research, in the education and learning, in the also be an element that is really very important in the evaluations. And even we have to think about our daily traveling and how we live our life as teachers and researchers. But something that is often forgot, that's the investment. Where do the university put its money. That's very relevant. What kind of processes and firms and organizations do we keep up? What kind of life? So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Lili-Ann, for a wonderful presentation. You have provided a very comprehensive picture about the sustainability in education or higher education. I think it's very good you identify the challenges, also suggest directions for future. I won't comment too much. I will return back to both of you. So after Dr. Huang Yu's presentation, then we are going to have some discussions about what you have presented. But now allow me to introduce our second speaker, Dr. Huang Yu from Beijing Normal University. Dr. Huang is an associate professor at the Institute of International and Comparative Education at Beijing Normal University, China. His research interests cover fields like environmental education and education for sustainable development, higher education and sustainable development, geographic education, tourism geography, and regional geography. She has conducted more than 20 research projects and published around 50 articles and more than 30 books. His professional career outside of academia includes writing and editing textbooks and popular science books for a variety of publishers. She's a member of the Geographical Society of China, Chinese Society of Comparative Education and Research. So Dr. Huang, so your floor is yours. So you're welcome to give your presentation. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Thanks for Dr. Cai's introduction. I would like to share my screen. Okay. Yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me here, and thanks for Dr. Cai, and thanks for Dr. Wu's wonderful presentation. Actually, I think Dr. Wu's presentation delivers valuable thoughts and inspirations, mostly theoretically or philosophically. So from my presentation, I would like to give some experiences and thinking from Chinese situation, just more on practical level. So my title is Green Transition in Higher Education University for Sustainable Development in China. So I'm going to share something on so-called Green University in China. Okay. Oops. So before I go into my slides, I would like to give a small note and list abbreviation used in my PPT. So as you can see here, so hereafter, when I use the term of China, here means mainland China, not include Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau. And I also list some abbreviations I use in my PPT. So hope it's helpful for you to understand it. So in first part, I will share some background information that I think it might help you to understand how and why Chinese higher education system was involved with sustainable development goals. As all we know, in 2007, ecological civilization became a policy, a national policy proposition of China. And then in 2015, it was further embodied into 5 development concepts. I list here, you can see on my slide, they are innovation, coordination, green development, opening up and sharing, which further accelerated China's green transition. The green transition takes the construction of ecological civilization as the leading factor, green economy as the foundation, so as to achieve resource conservation, environmental friendliness, and ecological balance, and have a harmonious development of human, nature, and society. So under this vision, there are many green things arose in China, such as green village, green family, green firms, green factory, green building, and green purchasing, green transportation, and so on, including green community and green school. So the green school campaign could be seen as the starting point, could be seen as the starting point of green university movement in China. As you know, in Chinese language, school means all formal educational institutions from kindergarten to universities. So it was said in China Agenda 21st, which was issued in 1994, that ideas of sustainable development should be integrated into education, from basic education to higher education. From then on, green schools, including green universities, has been defined as an important part for green transition or sustainability in China. Up to now, after more than 20 years development, there are over 40,000 green schools in more than 20% cities in China, 90% cities in China, in which there are around 150 green universities. Considering that China has more than 3,000 institutions of post-secondary education, including public traditional colleges and universities, with affiliations at the central government level and ministry and sub-ministry and provincial to local level. In recent years, private universities have been established as well. So only about 5% of them have become green in more than 20 years. So it's not a big achievement, actually. So some universities move quickly to make their school, to make their campus green, but others move more slowly and methodically. We can see some milestones of developments in sustainability across higher education in China from the 1990s through 2020. I would like to highlight recent action in 2020, which MOE and NDRC initiate a new green school project. So it requires over 60% schools in China, including colleges and universities, meet the standard of green school in near future years. So it's a really ambitious goals. After the background, I would like to introduce some ideas of the green universities in China. So why universities need to be green in China? So actually, since the beginning of 21st century, more and more Chinese universities realize there are at least three reasons at policy level for them to take such green university actions. Firstly, it has become our common vision to build a beautiful China. So that is environmentally friendly, resource efficiency, and harmony between man and the human and the nature. The secondly, I think higher education sector has been highly recognized to be a key force for green transition in building public knowledge, skills, and attitude for sustainable future. Thirdly, I think university is we think it's a lighthouse of the society. So greener is inevitable choice and responsibility for China's universities to implement the concept of sustainable development. So another point is what green university means in academic circles of China. I organized the comments of scholars into 5 aspects of the green universities in China. So from China's experiences, I think the first aspect for green university is to consider the operation and management of the university. so that it can become an environmental friendly university. So these are the first level activity. Secondly, in its teaching and learning area, I think universities need to rethink and renew their educational goals, curriculum, teaching method, and help to develop qualified Earth citizens for a sustainable future. Thirdly, university need to encourage sustainable research paradigm to give scientific and technical support for sustainable development. Fourthly, at the aspect of training of social service, universities need to provide innovation, high quality training, consulting, and other activities to be a power station for sustainable development. And fifthly, I think universities can integrate the concept of sustainable development into university culture, into the mission and policy of the university to lead a culture towards sustainable development. So management, education, research, services, and culture, these 5 aspects can be interrelated, combined, and mutually promoted in the Green University. So then we can have an ideological scheme to perceive green universities in China. There are 3 dimensions I list here. This dimension is the elements of sustainable development, including environment, economy, society, and culture. And this dimension is related to the organizational level, such the subunit affiliated with the university and the university level, and also a sustainable development network, and finally the sustainable development society. And this dimension is we call the functions of the university. So from the management, education, research, service to culture, they can be divided into 5 categories. In third part, I will present some green university cases in China. The first, I would like to mention Tsinghua University. So Tsinghua University is the most famous university in one of the most famous university in China. Actually, the first mention of Tsinghua's aspiration to become a green university occurred in 1998. So when officials announced their intention to achieve green education, green technology, and green campus, that's the 3 dimensions of the Tsinghua University. So another case is Peking University, or Beijing Beida. It is China's most prestigious university. So it decided to become a green university later than Tsinghua University. And today, there is no special green university office on this campus. So instead, these functions are performed by the neighborhood environmental protection office and campus planning. Since 2009, the campus planning office in Peking University was renamed the Campus Planning and Sustainable Development Office. So emphasizing its coordinative role in comprehensive green university construction. So 4 goals describe it, Beijing University's sustainable campus project. So they are the spatial planning. Oops, I'm sorry. The spatial planning and the research and teaching in environmental sciences, and the students' activity, and low carbon campus. So other universities, then the 2 we have featured, Tsinghua and Beida have pursued the ideas of becoming green universities. Here, I would like to introduce some general approaches they use. For example, the Beijing Forestry University this university took an integrated approach composed of 4 elements: green education, scientific research, and culture. And Harbin, this one, Harbin Institute of Technology emphasized a green plan, management, green talents, green technology, green campus, and green campus lifestyle. A large number of universities, including among other the Ocean University, Ocean University of China, and Foreign Economy and Trade University, and Southwest JoLII University, and Beijing Normal University, and Shanghai JoLII University, and China Agriculture University, and so on. They all focus on environmental management. They all focus on environmental management. So in Xinjiang, Guangxi, Wuhan, and Dalian, and other cities and other provinces, local policy documents reveal that the standard of the green universities also has been begun to enter construction document. So finally, I would like to touch difficulty and challenges of the green universities in China. Obviously, the 3 modes of activities and programs proposed by Tsinghua University, teaching, research, and campus, are present at least implicitly in many of China's colleges and universities. So most common are development of education programs and practical environmental management programs. However, if we compare China's universities with the conceptual model for green university development discussed before, so it is clear that China's universities are still in early stage, only in this stage of development. To the present, I think China's universities didn't go far on the path towards sustainability. And in this respect, are not greatly different from most universities globally. So to make Chinese universities a good host for the sustainable development or for the concept of the green transition, I think there are still many resistance from many quarters, and we will encounter contradictions and conflicts. So the challenges are great. The most outstanding point might be that the relevant documents and declarations have not been efficiently implemented. So we call more talking than doing. So another point is that the greening of the university is facing multiple internal and external challenges. And finally, the conservatism of the university prevents it from turning to sustainable development. Some Chinese universities not only are conservative, they also are inflexible and unbending with respect to change. They refuse to change. They are cautious to take action. So higher education is actually an important supporting sector for all SDGs. So from the perspective of higher education in China, I think we need to, I think we need to take, to emphasize 3 perspectives. The first is looking beyond the boundaries, and the secondary, thinking in harmony in diversity, and third, I think, is acting in the whole in integrated way. So by this means, I think we can make our university to have a to be an engine of development for sustainable future. So to pursue this goal, I think Chinese university can jointly have a great contribution with Finnish University and also other universities worldwide. Okay, so that's all I want to share today. Thank you for listening. And sorry for the slide. There's some kind of technical error here. Sorry.
Yeah, no worry. Thank you very much, Dr. Huang. Again, very impressive presentation. So you also give a lot of concrete examples. So that's help, you know, to better understand how the SDGs are implemented in Chinese higher education. So I also appreciate the final slides, even though, you know, you said there's, but that's can help, you know, people to really focus attention to the most important message. I think the final slides is very important to address the challenges and how to really implement the SDGs, you know, as a whole in the globe. You also talking about very important issues about the role of universities in addressing SDGs, even though your presentation is about SDG in higher education. So I think universities has also great responsibilities in implementing the SDGs and provoking the ideas in the society. So excellent. So before I asking you some questions, or you can have some conversations, I also want to show a website. So can you see the website? Actually, this is a special issue. So I guess you can see the screen, right? So this is a special issue. So I'm working with Lili-Ann. So we have been working for quite a long time, since last year. So this is based on the last Sino-Finnish Joint Learning Institute's annual conference. So the conference theme is about education and the sustainable development goals experienced from China and Finland. And so this panel is, in a way, is based on, is associated with a special issue. So I show the website just to remind you. So the discussions in the Sino-Finnish community, you know, is beyond the panel today. So you can also see 6 articles already published in the special issue. So one more is coming soon. So you can see one of the article is from Dr. Huang Yu, so the second presenter. So I just want to show you, you know, there is a special issue. So later I will put the website to the chat box. Now, can you see the screen, right? So
yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah. So now I can close since you have already got the chance to see the website. Okay. So now I return to the 2 speakers. Thank you very much for your contribution. So indeed, this is a good background information for the large topic. So it's very difficult sometimes to talk SDGs and higher education or education in 15 minutes. So it's very challenging because the concept SDG has already shown, you know, even we just talking about the United Nations SDGs, you know, you may need, you know, an hour just to explain each of the SDGs. And education is also broad concept, but luckily, you know, you are very consistent. You're talking about higher education. I think that can keep the panel discussion more focused. So I want to read some questions firstly about the conceptualization or understanding of the SDGs. Given the time limit, as I mentioned, so you cannot fully explore or explain the concept. But I suppose many people here already know the concept very well. And we also know that SDGs, so these are basically the concept proposed by the United Nations. But beside that, we also generally talking about sustainability, sustainable development. You know, they are sometimes used interchangeably, but they are also different concepts. But in the literature, normally sustainability or sustainable development are understood from 3 perspectives, like social sustainable development or social sustainability, economic sustainability, and environmental sustainability. So there are three dimensions, I think, in your presentation. And for example, the Green Compass, is quite clear related to environment, but the three dimensions are always interrelated, which have already been indicated by your presentations. So my question is more on the practical side. So how, because we are, as scholars, we already know how this has been discussed in the literature, but my question is how such concept, sustainable development, or SDGs proposed by the United Nations are understood by relevant actors in higher education. Also, how the understanding might be different between different levels. For example, policymakers, university leaders, because, as you said, already presented in policies, university strategies, the SDGs or sustainability somehow are quite visible. So my understanding is how this might also be understood in the same manner by the staff members. So, the question basically is about how the SDGs, the concept of sustainable development, are understood by the practitioners in different levels, whether there are some differences between the higher level or those, on the floor level. So, yeah, who are ready for responding first?
I could take it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, unfortunately, it's on a very low level, the understanding. And I think that to really understand the holistic idea of the project and what all is included in this concept and what all is included and what it really means, that's something that many people also in the academia do not know. And so it's I think it was very interesting to hear Huang's presentation, because I think we are not much farther in Finland either, because it's many things might only be on a rhetorical level or on a visionary level, and not even always that. Because, for example, I have been studied teacher education, and you might know that in the general aims of teacher education in relation to sustainability, UNESCO have written much about this topic. It's very clearly stated that higher education also shall deal with sustainability issues. It has to be included in both in the whole university, and not only teaching and research. But when we then had a study and took a deeper look in the documents that lead the teacher education, what is to be included in teacher education, it was hard to find anything about sustainability. And I participated in a Nordic conference, a big conference with 250 persons, dealing with many of them with the policy of education in the Nordic countries. And the conference was about the future of education. And very few times somebody mentioned sustainability. Most of them didn't talk about that issue at all. So I think we still have a very long way to go.
Yeah,
I might sound pessimistic, but
Yeah,
That's
but that's somehow, unfortunately, is the reality. So thank you for pointing out the challenges. Also, as you mentioned in your slides, in the end of your slides, you are calling for culture. So that is very important. So we're not simply, we cannot have, sustainable development only put everything on the document, having the rhetoric. We really need to have the culture means that all the people, teachers, staff, students, they share the understanding. So this is somehow must be embedded in our everyday activity. But we are just starting towards that direction. So Dr. Huang, are you ready to respond to the question?
Actually, it's not. Should say actually, I have a common feeling with Dr. Wolff. Actually, I think we still have a long way to go. I mean, to understand the right sustainable development and to take the sustainable development to really happen in our life. Yeah, but just as I mentioned in my PPT, there is very few universities in China have such sustainability programs in their campus, and there are still huge obstacles or challenges faced up for higher education system in China, but we also see a huge opportunity for Chinese people. Yeah, I would like to mention, just as you know, in recent years, in Chinese context, we understand sustainable development in somewhat Chinese way. We call ecological civilization. Yeah. So just as I mentioned in my PPT, the China has put green development as one of the national strategy. So it's very important part for the for future development of China. So when we talk about ecological civilization, I think we can understand, we perceive sustainable development from three perspectives. The first, since ecological civilization compare with other civilizations, something like the agricultural and the industrial civilization, ecological civilization is a new era or new period for human development. So Chinese understood sustainable development from this perspective. And the second perspective, so what development for? What civilization for? Just for beautiful, in China, we call beautiful China. We call beautiful China. So for all people in China. This is the second perspective, I think. The third perspective from ecological civilization is is it the civilization only for China? No, we also have another term we call the community or the shared future for the community. So the ecological civilization, not only for Chinese, for all human, all Earth citizens. So it's a kind of civilization for all. That's what Chinese understood the sustainable development. So from these perspectives, I think higher education system in China also needs to have a transformation from traditional mode to a green transition mode. Yeah. We have a very strong system from top down and from the down to top. So even it's still a long way to go. I mean, just like we mentioned before, it's not so many universities recognize the importance of a green transition and the education for sustainable development. But ecological civilization has a policy power, a very strong power in China. I believe there would be a boost actually in Chinese higher education system to pursue the ecological civilization goals. Yeah, I think this somehow Chinese way to think about sustainable development, and I think it's quite strong in China. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, thank you for both of you answering the question how sustainable development is understood in both Finnish and Chinese context. And I think you also extended the question to some other issues. But I want to also return back to the core discussion about SDG and higher education. I think I shortly mentioned that basically we are talking about the two issues. So one is about SDG or sustainable development within higher education or within universities. So how universities themselves are pursuing sustainable development goals and making university more, ecological and also sustainable in many aspects. On the other hand, universities as a very important education institute and social institution playing very important roles to changing the societal structure, social norms, which may foster the sustainable development, at large. So I want to somehow go to the second aspect. How do you see? Of course, we all have the shared understanding that the universities having such roles in promoting sustainable development for the society. I want to ask you a question. What are the major or most significant challenges? I think there are a lot of challenges faced by universities, but if you can pick up maybe the one major challenge, or you consider the most important issues in performing for universities performing such a role in promoting sustainable development. If you can pick up one challenges and somehow elaborate it, and afterwards you may share your speculations how these challenges might be mitigated or resolved, especially not only by your own experience, but also based on the discussion how, for example, the Chinese challenges, resolving the challenges in China may borrow some good ideas, experience from Finland, or anything Finland can borrow China to resolve the challenge. So in summary, the question is, what is the most significant challenge for universities to play their role for promoting sustainable development in the society, and how to resolve the challenges, whether there's some lessons you can learn from each other. Thank you.
Okay, I will go first. Actually, I think it's a very comprehensive question for that, but I just would like just to point out just one point for Chinese university. Just I mentioned in my PPT, there are many difficulties and challenges faced up by the Chinese university. For example, the policy link feasibility, and some university take the Green University as a slogan other than action guide. And actually some, because length of money or some very successful projects has to be closed or still in trouble. But I think all these problems or difficulties are superficial. The deep reason is the culture, actually. So that's what I think is the most or the major challenges Chinese university faced in the future. We have to create, or we have to move to a new culture. I mean, not only the campus culture, but also the university's culture as a leader of the society culture, to take the leadership, to lead the culture transformation in the society. So I think this the very important point, or the most important point for the university. But how to make such change happen in Chinese university? Yeah, it's really, I think, a time-consuming action for this, because the university are reluctant to change. Sometimes they don't like big change. So to my understanding, I think the only way is to encourage innovation, not only innovation for technology, for scientific tools, and for industry, for economies like that, but also innovation for education, for teaching and learning happened in classroom, in campus, not only in school campus, but also in university campus. So I think that's the key for us to bring changes, to overcome the difficulties. Yeah, that's what my idea. Yeah.
Yeah, very insightful points. Indeed, it's always difficult to change a culture, because this is by nature. So this is about how we change our value system. And it's a very right. Fundamental changes. So this is not about technology innovation, but education, but also social innovation. So we need to really change the social structure so that the SDG can be more sustained. Okay, now I return to Lili-Ann. You are ready?
Yes, and unfortunately, I didn't hear everything what you said in your question because I have an unstable connection, but I'll try to answer. And I think that what Huang brought forward now, that's many things that I agree on too. And also in your presentation, you talked about the old-fashioned university, or do I remember right? So I think this is something that's very typical for university. They have a very old structure. So they have and many people acting in this context want to keep the things as they are. They do not want changes. And that's a problem. And one of these obstacles are the disciplinarity, that everybody act inside a very small, or not small in all sense, but it's very restricted what they might we included in that discipline. So to work together and go and break this boundary, that's one problem that I see that's very hard. And also because there can be teachers that think that they have run this course this way all their years at the university, and they do not want to change because somebody say that we have to talk about sustainability. But I see a very and then of course we have the competition with other goals, the economic goals, and to be the most important university in the Europe. They talk a lot about that, and in Finland to be the best university, to be top ranked and things like this. This is not in line with sustainability. You cannot work for equality on a global scale, not even on a national scale, if you think that you have to have some winner. You cannot have winners if you don't have losers. That's what competition is about. But I see a very strong hope in the students, because the students have started to crave sustainability in their courses. And now we at my university are working to include sustainability in every course. But this is not easy for all teachers, because they do not even know what it's all about. It takes sustainability both as researchers and as teachers as an adjective. So they want to make it a more sustainable teaching in some way, but they do not understand the difference between that and to make the sustainability as an issue in the teaching. So and it's of course this ignorance is, you cannot blame people for this ignorance, but you have to go on and talk about it and discuss this issue. And then I think we also need to include the students in the discussions at the universities, so their voices will be heard.
Thanks, Lili-Ann. I suppose you have already responded to Oli Bega's question somehow. But Oli Bega, would you like to also respond if you want to further address your question a little bit?
No, thank you for your. So I think it was at least partially answered, but I was also thinking that in your own institution, actually mine as well, the University of Helsinki, we will have this one compulsory sustainability course for all students beginning of from the next academic year. And how do you see this kind of approach, that you have a certain course, not very long course, but nevertheless, and then all students in a certain higher education institution will study it?
Yes, it has been a long way to have this course. It hasn't come by itself, and many people have been involved. You might even know that, but I think it's a beginning. It's an opening of a door. So all these kinds of initiatives are very welcome, and I think we need to start somewhere. And if we have a basic course for all students, it hasn't even been very easy to have all faculties involved and to accept to have this course. So this has also been a struggle. But when we have this course, we open an issue for the students. And if this is handled good, the students might become interested, because what I have seen on many courses, you do not need to talk very much about this sustainability issue to make them interested, because it's so close to their reality and to the daily life of all of us.
Yes, very interesting to hear. So can you, Lili-Ann or Oliver, if you know the course, can you give more concrete explanation? So what is the course about? So what students are going to learn from the course?
It's a basic course in sustainable development, and it's they take 3 points on that's on an online course that's similar to all students at the university, and then they have faculty-wise 2 points that's the faculty can arrange them as they want. But at least in my faculty, it's a problem that this also costs a lot of money, and this is not counted in the plan. So there comes many hindrances on the way that have to be solved, because it will also activate teachers and so. But this course have already started in some of the faculties, and but as I understood, it's a big interest among the students to take this course. But on top of that, at my faculty, we also want to include sustainability as an issue in all courses, and this is still more complicated. But I think we can also start on many levels at the same time.
Yeah, so it's called compulsory. So does it mean all the degree students have to take the course, get some credits in order to get the diploma?
Yes, and I had added it's a kind of a basic course.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for the clarification. I think some people may like me, want to know more concrete about the example. I think this is very relevant. Somehow this may help to gradually change the culture. So somehow, as you said, the university is always resistant to change. But when we have some compulsory courses, so teacher students may, get more somehow accustomed to the sustainable issues and more embrace sustainability in their daily academic activities. So very good. Do we have other questions? So feel free. So we do not have so many people here. So if you have any questions you want to ask, you be flexible. You can raise your hand, you write in the chat box, or you can just simply turn on your microphone, start to talking. So let's have some conversations here. But now I would like to give also the opportunity to both speakers. If you have anything you want to ask each other, so feel free. So if you want to know a little bit more about, the best practices, or whether you have the same challenges, so I give you the opportunity to raise questions to each other. Thank you. If you want.
Okay, thank you. I just want to, I'm curious about that actually. It's a question for Dr. Wolff. Actually, I heard about the educational reform or curriculum reform for sustainability courses for all students in all disciplines, in all degree curriculum, actually, in Helsinki University. It's quite great reform, actually. I think it's also a big challenge for the university. And in Chinese case, some university also plan to do so, actually, in their campus, in their system. But they also find a big challenge for them is they cannot find a suitable or proper teacher to teach such courses. So it means we encourage all courses to integrate sustainability dimension into them, but we still want we have a how should I say, we have a how it's a high level courses to cover all students for all disciplines. So some teachers also argue it's not possible. That's why many Chinese universities cannot have such courses or curriculum. So what do you think? I just think, what kind of recommendation can you make for them from your experiences?
I think this is the problem we also face, because when you have hundreds and thousands of students, it's not so easy. But I think the best way to solve it, that would be to employ teachers that would only work with this course, and then they can choose experts when they employ them, because it's not, I don't think it will be possible that anybody, a lot of people do it beside their other teachings, because they also have to be familiar all the time with the topic, keep updated with the content, and they have to cooperate with each others, and so the course won't be split in many directions. So it's very demanding. I think it's good that they do think of this beforehand in China, because it's easier said than done to really implement this kind of big course to all students. But of course, we have language courses and IT courses and the like that are compulsory for all students. So there we have a kind of experience of arranging big courses for all students. Mm-hmm. But then we have special teachers taking care of it.
Okay, thank you.
You have a question in the chat?
Yeah, we have one question. So Professor Zuo Bing has one question. So Professor Zuo Lao, would you like to ask a question by yourself, or you want me to read your question? Hello? Okay, are you there? Okay, maybe you prefer me to read, or I think everybody can read it. So this is to Dr. Huang. I would like to ask a small question from the garbage classification. How do you think the difficulties and the challenges of environmental education in China regarding the garbage sorting? So I think you know very well in China, so this is quite a practical challenge, how to sort the garbage. And in Finland, this has already been somehow systematically organized. So please respond to the questions.
Okay, thank you for your question. Actually, I think it's really a hard question to answer because the garbage classification or garbage sorting is really a big problem in our cities, especially for the big cities. Actually, not only in cities but also in rural area. The garbage is also a big problem. So actually, I think some scholars also discuss about this situation for a long time. Most of them think the awareness, I mean, the awareness, the public awareness is the most important. obstacles for garbage sorting. Okay, but actually, I don't think that. To my understanding, actually, I think that the most important thing is we don't have a efficient system. I mean, it's like a cost and a benefit system. You especially for the normal people, you do some garbage sorting, but you cannot get I mean, how should I put this? Yeah, because you are doing when you are doing the garbage sorting, you need to put some labor and even some times and make trouble for yourself actually, somewhat somehow, but you cannot get how should I say, enough payback or reward for that. Sometimes such kind of reward system is not operational in Chinese, in many Chinese cities. So to my understanding, I think such kind of system obstacle is the real important point for that. So to find a solution, I still want to emphasize innovation. We need to change our mind and to create a new system for that, and just really locate it in Chinese situation to see the demands for normal people, and then we can have a real efficiency garbage sorting system. Yeah, that's what I think, just for your reference.
Thank you for answering this question. This is a very important issue. It's quite a challenging issue. Now we also have another question from chat box. So JoLII, would you like to turn on your microphone to ask the question directly to Professor Wu? Okay, so I can read it then. So you have some problem with your microphone. So this is Lili, this is a question to you. I think you can also see it if you cannot hear properly from me. So I once learned from some articles that a circular economy has been included in the Finnish education system, in which children will learn some basic knowledge about the circular economy from a young age, like in primary school. Do you think the integration of circular economy would be helpful for promoting sustainability?
Thanks for that question. Yes, of course, the circular economies, that might be a difficult question if you are in primary school, but on the other hand, it's about how you talk about it and how you, but my opinion is that all that has to do with sustainability and education also has the question about norms. So I mean, you do not need to teach the children that circular economy is the only option, but you can describe what it is, and you can describe what the opposite would be, and have the quiz, the children discussing and coming up with their own ideas, because my experience is that you can discuss very difficult questions with children if you do it in the right way, because this is also about ethics. It's not only about practicalities. And so, yes, I think you can do it.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, JoLII, for reading the question. I think now I cannot see any other questions from the chat box. And also, I think we are quite very much at the point to close the session because Lili is also going to teach. So in a few minutes. So in the end, I would like to invite each speakers. So if you, after discussion, if you want to give some advice to the universities or practitioners to further develop this sustainability, or better achieve sustainable development goals, what you want to offer. So if you have some core message you want to share at this point. Okay, who want to start? Yes.
So actually, I think yeah, it's really another challenging question for us. Actually, to my understanding, I think based what I mentioned before, because innovation is so important for our future, to help us to let some innovation happen, we need to open mind and exchange very efficiently. So just like Dr. Wolff mentioned, the young generation is the one generation with most innovation and most open-minded generation. So I think, and in the university, the culture is also will be created by this young generation. So I think if I would like to put suggestion for our university, I would like to suggest our university to get involved with more young generation into affairs of university, not only management, but also education and social service and culture building for that. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The students are our future.
Yeah.
Lili, so what's the key message from you?
Yes, I agree on this message also, but I also would go back to my topic, leadership, because we shall not underestimate the leaders. And sometimes me and my colleagues arrange a meeting together with our closest colleagues and talked about sustainability. And we talked about the most important things in the sustainability at the university. We made a list and we talked about how we shall go further. And I didn't hesitate. I wrote directly to our rector, to the highest boss on the university. And he responded directly. He was very positive. So what we said went further to the group in the leadership group that dealt with sustainability, a new group. And the course we have discussed at our university that will be open for and compulsory for all the students. It was suggested by a colleague of mine who went to a meeting where the highest leaders listened to questions from the audience, from the staff, and the staff could come up with ideas. So from that, such a meeting, this course has been further developed. So we also need to include our leaders in the discussion, because they are clever people and they are open for ideas, and they know what happens in society. We have a lot of help also at my faculty, because the dean and the leaders, they are they are open to our ideas and they listen to what we say about sustainability issues.
Yes.
So, for example, we had a possibility to develop official groups and so on.
Yeah, good point. So we also need the leaders to lead us to the future. So thank you very much. I think we have to, even though I want to continue the discussion, but the time is up. I think people are busy for other things. So thank you for our distinguished speakers, for all the participants, for your wonderful presentation and good discussion contribution to the questions. So thank you very much and welcome to our next session. Please follow our website. We have the continuous this kind of a panel dialogues. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.